The champagne flute felt delicate between my fingers as I stood in the corner of Isabel's penthouse, watching my fiancé Marcus lean close to his sister. Their heads tilted together in that conspiratorial way siblings have. And then I heard it. Soft, dismissive, cruel. Ellis Telmont Credgel. She's so gullible. Before we jump back in, tell us where you're tuning in from, and if this story touches you, make sure you're subscribed, because tomorrow, I've saved something extra special for you. Marcus's voice carried just enough for me to catch it, probably because he assumed I wouldn't understand. After all, I'd never mentioned my 3 years at the Sorbonne. Never brought up the advanced degree in international relations I'd earned entirely in French. Never let slip that I'd lived in the Marais district, debating philosophy in left-bank cafes until dawn. Why would I? When we met 2 years ago at that corporate networking event in Boston, Marcus had painted himself as this self-made finance genius. The stories he told, working his way up from nothing, supporting his family, building his portfolio through pure grit and intelligence. I'd been charmed by his supposed humility, his apparent work ethic. I'd presented myself simply. Emma Chen, marketing consultant, modest apartment in Cambridge, sensible car, practical clothes. After my father's tech company sold for 9 figures when I was 25, I'd learned the hard way that broadcasting wealth attracted the wrong kind of attention. 3 relationships with men who saw dollar signs instead of me had taught me to be cautious. So when Marcus proposed 6 months ago, I'd said yes to a man I thought I knew. A man who claimed to love me for who I was, not what I had. Tu penses qu'elle sait? Isabel's response came next, her voice tinged with amusement. Do you think she knows? Non, elle ne parle pas français. Je lui ai demandé. Marcus chuckled. No, she doesn't speak French. I asked her. He had asked, 3 months ago, casually over dinner. Ever learn any foreign languages? I'd shrugged and said I'd taken some Spanish in high school. Nothing special. The lie had been easy because I was already starting to see cracks in his story. Before we begin, I want to take a moment to thank each of you for being part of this incredible journey. If you're enjoying these stories of empowerment, consider subscribing. It's completely free and helps us build this amazing community. Let's dive in. I took a slow sip of champagne, my face a mask of pleasant contentment as I scanned the room. Isabel's small family gathering had turned into 50 people crammed into her Beacon Hill apartment. Persian rugs, contemporary art, floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the common. The Laurent family knew how to project success. What Marcus didn't know was that I'd hired a private investigator 4 months ago. What started as a nagging feeling, small inconsistencies in his stories, mysterious business, trips, expense reports that didn't quite match his claimed lifestyle, had become something much darker. The PI's reports sat in a locked drawer in my real apartment, the one Marcus had never seen. The 2-bedroom condo in Back Bay that I'd bought outright 7 years ago, filled with the art I actually loved, the books in 3 languages, the life I'd built carefully and privately. Emma! Isabel glided toward me, her smile perfect and predatory. She was stunning, Marcus's older sister by 3 years, with the same sharp cheekbones and calculating eyes. You look lovely. That dress is charming. The pause before charming spoke volumes. My Nordstrom cocktail dress, perfectly nice but unremarkable, was probably worth a 1/10 of her Valentino. I'd chosen it deliberately. Thank you, I said warmly, playing the role of the grateful girlfriend welcomed into this sophisticated family. Your home is beautiful. You've decorated with such taste. Merci, chérie. She air-kissed both my cheeks. Marcus tells me you're in marketing. How practical. The condescension dripped like honey. I smiled wider. Someone has to keep the lights on, I said with a self-deprecating laugh. Not all of us can be finance wizards like Marcus and your family. Oui, c'est vrai. Isabel's eyes gleamed. Yes, that's true. She was testing me, speaking French to see if I'd react. I kept my expression pleasantly blank, as if she'd just commented on the weather. Marcus appeared at my side, his hand possessive on my lower back. Having a good time, sweetheart? Wonderful, I said, leaning into him. Your sister has been so welcoming. Elle est mignonne, Isabel said to Marcus, her smile sharp. She's cute. Très, Marcus agreed, his hand sliding lower. Very. They were discussing me like a pet, like something amusing and simple. I felt the rage simmer beneath my carefully controlled exterior, but channeled it into something productive. Observation. Over the next hour, I floated through the party, playing my role perfectly. I laughed at Marcus's colleagues' jokes, nodded along to conversations about investments I could have taught courses on, and watched. Always watched. Marcus's college friend Dominic cornered me near the canapé table. So, Emma, Marcus says you two are house hunting? We're looking, I confirmed, selecting a shrimp from the display. Something in the suburbs, maybe. Marcus wants a yard. What Marcus actually wanted was access to my supposed inheritance. 3 weeks ago, he'd casually mentioned that I must have some family money tucked away. Your parents helped with college, right? Maybe they could help with a down payment? I'd played coy, said maybe a little. He'd immediately started looking at houses well beyond what our combined official salaries could afford. Smart to get in now, Dominic said, but his eyes were calculating. Marcus mentioned your family has some tech connections. Ah, so that was making the rounds. My father worked in tech, I said carefully, which was technically true. Founding a cybersecurity company that now employed 3,000 people was definitely working in tech. But I'm afraid I didn't inherit his head for computers. I'm more of a words person. Right. Marketing. Dominic nodded, already losing interest. Well, good for you for finding something you can do. The dismissal was so casual it was almost funny. These people, Marcus's people, had no idea they were talking to someone who'd negotiated contracts with Fortune 500 companies, who sat on 2 nonprofit boards under a carefully maintained pseudonym, who could buy and sell most of them without touching my principal investment accounts. I excused myself to the bathroom, needing a moment away from the performance. Isabel's guest bathroom was all marble and gold fixtures, with French soap that probably cost more than my fake monthly rent. I pulled out my phone and opened the encrypted messaging app. A new report from Richard, my PI, had come through an hour ago. I'd been waiting for the right moment to read it. The subject line made my breath catch. Confirmed, secondary residence. My hands steady despite the adrenaline, I opened the file. Marcus had been maintaining an apartment in the Seaport district for 8 months. The rent, $4,500 monthly, was being paid through what he'd claimed was his business expense account. Richard had managed to get photos through the building's lobby cameras. Marcus entering alone. Marcus entering with a blonde woman, her hand in his back pocket. The same woman on 3 different dates over 6 weeks. The most recent photo was dated 5 days ago. There were more details. The woman's name was Natasha Kowalski. She worked at the same investment firm as Marcus. According to her social media, conveniently not set to private, she loved Paris, spoke fluent French, and posted regularly about her relationship with M. The photos showed them at restaurants I recognized, places Marcus had said he was going for client dinners. In one photo, Natasha wore a necklace I'd seen in Marcus's credit card statement 3 months ago. He'd told me it was a gift for Isabel's birthday. I steadied myself against the marble counter, staring at my reflection. My face showed nothing. Years of practice had made me excellent at maintaining composure. But inside, the pieces were clicking together with painful clarity. Marcus wasn't just a liar about small things. He wasn't just casually cruel in private. He was running a con, and I was the mark. Another message came through from Richard. More to discuss. Available for call tonight. Urgent. I composed a quick response. After 10 p.m., secure line. Preparing and narrating this story took us a lot of time, so if you are enjoying it, like this video, it means a lot to us. Now back to the story. When I returned to the party, I found Marcus holding court near the windows, surrounded by his family and friends. His mother, Catherine, was there, elegant in Chanel, her silver hair perfectly coiffed. She'd been coolly polite to me since we met, the kind of politeness that made clear I wasn't quite good enough for her son. "Emma, dear," Catherine said as I approached. "We were just discussing wedding plans. Have you and Marcus set a date?" "We're thinking next spring," I said, sliding under Marcus's arm. "Something intimate, maybe." "Intimate?" Catherine's eyebrow arched. "But darling, Marcus is from such a prominent family. Surely you'll want something that reflects that." "Je suis d'accord," Isabelle added, appearing with fresh champagne. "Une petite cérémonie serait disappointing." "I agree. A small ceremony would be disappointing." She said that last word in English, making sure I understood at least that part. "We want Emma to feel comfortable," Marcus said smoothly, but his hand tightened on my waist. "She's not used to larger events." The implication was clear. I was too simple, too unsophisticated for the Laurent family's standards. Better to keep the wedding small so I wouldn't embarrass them. "Of course," I murmured, playing the grateful, overwhelmed fiancé. "I just want Marcus to be happy." "Elle est vraiment parfaite pour lui," Catherine said to Isabelle, and they both laughed. "She's really perfect for him." The laughter wasn't kind. I excused myself again, claiming I needed to take an important work call. This time I stepped onto Isabelle's balcony, the November air sharp and cleansing. Below, the lights of Boston spread out like a glittering web. My phone buzzed. A text from my best friend Sophia, one of the few people who knew my real financial situation. "How's the party? Do I need to bail you out?" I typed back, "Discovered fiancé has secret apartment and girlfriend. Family thinks I'm trash." Still smiling. Her response was immediate. "Get out now!" "Not yet," I replied. "I have a plan." And I did. As I stood there in the cold, listening to the muffled sounds of the party behind me, the plan crystallized with perfect clarity. I'd spent 2 years playing small, playing poor, playing harmless. I'd watched Marcus show his true colors slowly, like a photograph developing in solution. I'd documented everything while presenting myself as exactly what they expected. Gullible, unsophisticated, grateful. Now it was time to flip the script. I pulled up my contacts and scrolled to a name I hadn't used in 6 months. Michel Laurent. Marcus's cousin, the black sheep of the family. She'd been cut off 2 years ago after refusing to go into finance, choosing instead to become an investigative journalist. Marcus rarely mentioned her, and when he did, it was with disdain. But I remembered meeting her briefly at a charity event. I remembered how her eyes had sharpened with interest when Marcus introduced me, how she'd slipped me her card later with a quiet, "Call me if you ever need anything." At the time, I hadn't understood the warning in her voice. Now, I did. I composed a careful text. "Hi, Michelle. We met briefly last year. I'm Marcus's fiancée, Emma. I have a story you might be interested in. Involves your family and some creative accounting. Interested?" The response came back in under a minute. "Very. Coffee tomorrow? I know a place." "Perfect," I typed back. "I'll bring documentation." I deleted the message thread and returned to the party, my smile brighter than ever. The rest of the evening passed in a blur of careful observation and strategic positioning. I memorized faces, noted relationships, cataloged the casual cruelties. Every time someone spoke French, assuming I couldn't understand, I filed it away. Elle ne comprendrait jamais nos affaires, Marcus's uncle said to Catherine. She would never understand our business. C'est mieux ainsi, Catherine replied. Il peut faire ce qu'il veut. It's better that way. He can do what he wants. They were discussing Marcus's business dealings, and his freedom to do what he wanted. The implications made my stomach turn, but I kept smiling, kept nodding, kept playing the part. Around 11, Marcus found me in conversation with his grandmother, Marguerite. She was 92, sharp as a tack, and had been watching me all evening with calculating eyes. Your French is truly non-existent? She asked me directly, speaking English with a heavy accent. I'm afraid so, Madame Laurent, I said apologetically. I always meant to learn, but you know how it is. She studied me for a long moment, and I saw something flicker in her eyes. You know, girl, not everything is as it appears in this family. Before I could respond, Marcus appeared. Grandmother, you're not monopolizing Emma, are you? She is refreshing, Marguerite said, still watching me. Simple, honest, these are rare qualities. They certainly are, Marcus agreed, his voice dripping with condescension he thought I wouldn't catch. As we left the party an hour later, Marcus's hand on my back as we waited for the elevator, I heard Isabelle's voice from inside the apartment one last time. Combien de temps tu penses que ça va durer? How long do you think it will last? Marcus's response came clearly through the closing door. Jusqu'à ce que je n'en ai plus besoin. Until I don't need her anymore. In the elevator down, Marcus pulled me close, kissing my temple. You were perfect tonight, sweetheart. My family loves you. Really? I let uncertainty color my voice. I felt like maybe I didn't quite fit in. Don't be silly. His hand slid to my waist. They just take time to warm up. You're exactly what I need. Not what he wanted, what he needed. The word choice wasn't accidental. We took a cab back to my apartment. Actually, a modest rental I'd leased specifically for Marcus's benefit. My real home was 15 blocks away, but he'd never know that. You want to come up? I asked at the door, knowing he'd say no. I'd love to, but I have an early meeting tomorrow. He kissed me, deeply, his hand possessive on my neck. Rain check? Of course. I watched him get back in the cab, watched it pull away. Then I walked 3 blocks, caught another cab, and gave the driver my real address. The condo welcomed me like an old friend, the art I'd collected over years, the first edition books, the view of the harbor. I poured myself a real drink, 30-year-old cognac, not the cheap wine I kept at the rental, and settled into my home office. Richard called at 10:15 p.m. exactly. You're not going to like this, he said without preamble. Tell me. The apartment isn't just for Natasha. Marcus has been using it for multiple purposes. We've documented at least 3 different women over the past 8 months. Natasha is the most regular, but she's not the only one. I took a sip of cognac, letting the burn center me. Go on. The investment firm he works for? He's been under internal investigation for 6 weeks. Insider trading allegations. Small scale, nothing provable yet, but they're watching him. How did you find this out? I have a contact in their compliance department. Off the record, they think he's been front-running client trades, using information he gets from family connections to make personal trades through offshore accounts. How is that connected to me? Richard paused. Emma, I think he's planning to use you as a fall guy, or fall girl. If the investigation goes public, having a fiancé who supposedly has family tech money and connections gives him a convenient explanation for his gains. He can claim you are the source of information, that he didn't know it was illegal. The cognac suddenly tasted bitter. There's more, Richard continued. His conversation with his sister tonight. We had surveillance on the building. I have audio of them after you left. And? Isabel asked him when he was going to seal the deal and get access to your real money. Marcus said soon. He's planning to rush the wedding, get joint accounts set up, and then the phrase he used was, extract what I need before she realizes what's happening. I stared at the harbor lights, processing. They think I have money? They think your family has money. Tech money. They've been investigating your background, but you've covered your tracks well. They can't find anything solid, but the pieces they have, your education, your confidence, the way you carry yourself, they've convinced themselves there's a trust fund or inheritance you're hiding. The irony would have been funny if it weren't so infuriating. The sister mentioned something else, Richard said. Something about her father's connections being worth the wait. They're not just after money, Emma. They want access to your father's business network. My father, who had built Chen Cybersecurity from nothing, who now counted half the Fortune 500 as clients, who had taught me that the most valuable currency wasn't money, it was information. Send me everything, I said. Every file, every photo, every recording. Encrypted. Already done. Check your secure server. Thank you, Richard. Bill the retainer and add a bonus. You've been thorough. One more thing. His voice went carefully neutral. Michelle Laurent, the cousin. She's legitimate. I checked her out after you contacted her. She's been investigating her family's business practices for a story. Has sources in the SEC, the State Attorney General's office. If you're thinking of working with her, I am. She's clean, and she really hates Marcus. Something about him getting her cut off from the family money after she refused to help him with some scheme years ago. Perfect. After we hung up, I spent 3 hours going through Richard's files, building a timeline, cross-referencing transactions, matching dates of Marcus's business trips with Natasha's social media posts. They'd been to Montreal, New York, Miami together. All on weekends he'd told me he was at finance conferences. The insider trading evidence was circumstantial but compelling. Small trades, carefully timed, always just under the reporting thresholds. But the pattern was clear to anyone who knew what to look for. And I knew what to look for. My father hadn't raised a fool. By 2 a.m., I had a strategy. By 3 a.m., I had a timeline. By 4 a.m., I had 3 different scenarios mapped out, each with contingencies and fallback positions. I slept for 4 hours, then woke to my alarm at 8 a.m. I had a busy day ahead. The coffee shop Michelle had chosen was a small place in Jamaica Plain, the kind of neighborhood spot that valued privacy over Instagram aesthetics. She was already there when I arrived, sitting in a back corner with her laptop open and a serious expression. Emma. She stood to shake my hand. I have to admit, when you texted, I was curious. When I did some digging last night, I became very interested. What kind of digging? The kind that shows me Marcus has been remarkably interested in you since the day you met. The kind that shows that meeting wasn't accidental. He was at that networking event specifically because you were. I felt my eyebrows rise. How do you know that? Because I've been tracking his patterns for 2 years. Michelle pulled out a tablet, swiping through what looked like detailed spreadsheets. My family cut me off because I wouldn't help Marcus with a scheme to defraud one of his clients. When I threatened to report him, they rallied around him and threw me out. I'm sorry. Don't be. It freed me to do what I do best. Investigate. And I've been building a case against the Laurent family business practices ever since. She looked up, her eyes intense. But I need more. I need inside information. I need someone they trust. Someone they've already dismissed as too stupid to understand what they're really doing. They think I'm gullible, I said quietly. They think you're a mark. Michelle's voice was gentle but firm. And here's what I know. You're not. You're Emma Chen, daughter of Thomas Chen, founder of Chen Cybersecurity. You graduated from the Sorbonne with a degree in international relations. You speak 3 languages fluently. You have an MBA from Stanford. And you're worth somewhere north of $40 million personally, separate from your family's wealth. I went very still. How? Because I'm good at my job. She smiled slightly. And because your father's company was very interested when I pitched them a story about corporate espionage last year. Your father's head of security is very thorough. We've kept in touch. David, I said. David Martinez, my father's right hand for 15 years. David, Michelle confirmed, who called me 3 days ago and said I might want to pay attention to Marcus Laurent's fiancé. He didn't say why, just that it might be mutually beneficial. I sat back, processing. My father knew. Of course he knew. Thomas Chen hadn't built an empire by missing threats to his family. So, here's my question, Michelle continued. Are you going to run? Or are you going to help me burn them all down? I thought about Marcus's voice in the elevator. Until I don't need her anymore. I thought about Isabel's contemptuous laughter. She's so gullible. I thought about Catherine's dismissal, the family's casual cruelty, the web of fraud and deception they'd built around assuming I was too simple to understand. I'm going to help you burn them down, I said, but on my terms. And I have conditions. Name them. First, we don't just expose Marcus. We expose the entire system, the insider trading, the fraud, whatever else you've found. Everyone complicit goes down. Agreed. What else? Second, we do this legally and thoroughly. I want them facing criminal charges, not just public humiliation. Which means we need to involve the proper authorities at the right time. I have contacts at the SEC and the state AG's office. They've been waiting for someone to give them enough for warrants. Third, I said, leaning forward, I want to do this in a way that's public, that's undeniable, and that happens in front of everyone who matters to them. I want them to watch it all fall apart. Michelle's smile was sharp. I think I know exactly how to do that. The Laurent Family Charity Gala is in 3 weeks. Annual event, 500 attendees, all of Boston's financial elite. Media coverage, live streaming. Perfect. We spent the next 3 hours going through everything. Michelle's investigation into the family's business practices. She had evidence of fraud going back 5 years. My documentation of Marcus's deception. Richard's reports on the secret apartment and the multiple women. The insider trading is the key, Michelle said. Everything else is just embezzlement and fraud. But securities fraud? The SEC doesn't play around with that, especially when it involves multiple parties and family coordination. You think the family is involved? I know they are. Catherine, Isabel, Marcus's uncle Philippe, they've all been making coordinated trades through shell companies. Small enough to stay under the radar individually, but together, it's a pattern. She pulled up a chart showing trading activity across 6 months. The coordination was obvious once you saw it mapped out. How do we prove coordination? I asked. We need communications. Emails, texts, recorded conversations. The SEC can get warrants for that, but they need probable cause first. I thought about the party last night. The casual conversations in French, assuming privacy through language. What if I could get you recordings of them discussing their trades, planning their moves? In English? In French. But I can provide translations. Michelle's eyes narrowed. You speak French. I studied at the Sorbonne for 3 years. Does Marcus know? No one knows, except you now. Her smile was predatory. Oh, Emma, you beautiful, brilliant woman. You've been letting them incriminate themselves in front of you for 2 years. Actually, I only started recording conversations 4 months ago. Once I realized something was wrong. I pulled out my phone, opening the secure recording app I'd been using. I have about 40 hours of audio from various family events. All timestamped, all saved to cloud storage with authenticated backups. That's incredible. Michelle was already typing notes. But we need to be careful about recording laws. Massachusetts is an all-party consent state. I know, which is why I recorded everything in private spaces where I had explicit permission to be. Family homes, offices they invited me into. And I always had my phone visible. No hidden recordings, no secret devices. Just a phone sitting on a table that no one paid attention to. Smart. And the French conversations? They assumed privacy through language. But there's no legal expectation of privacy for a language you choose to speak in a non-private setting, especially when you've invited someone into that setting. Michelle stared at me. You've been planning this. I've been protecting myself, I corrected. There's a difference. I didn't know what I'd need the recordings for. I just knew something was wrong. We worked through lunch, building a timeline and a strategy. Michelle would coordinate with her contacts at the SEC, providing enough evidence to open a formal investigation. I would continue playing my role, gathering more evidence and preparing for the final revelation. The gala is the perfect venue, Michelle said. But we need something dramatic, something that makes it undeniable. An idea was forming. What if I gave a speech? At the gala? Why would they let you speak? Because I'm going to make a donation, a big one, in honor of Marcus and his family's commitment to financial ethics. Michelle's laugh was sharp and delighted. How big? Big enough that they can't refuse. Say, $5 million? That's a significant amount. It's a significant statement. I smiled. And I'll make sure the press knows it's coming from the Chen Family Foundation. They'll be so excited about the publicity and the money that they won't question the speech. And during the speech? During the speech, I'll tell them exactly who I am, what I know, and what's about to happen to them. The SEC will need to move immediately after, otherwise they'll destroy evidence. Can your contacts coordinate that? If we give them enough advance warning and enough evidence for warrants, yes. They can have agents ready to serve papers the moment you finish speaking. We looked at each other across the coffee shop table. Two women who'd both been underestimated by the same family, both ready to prove just how dangerous that underestimation could be. 3 weeks, Michelle said. We can do this in 3 weeks. Then let's get to work. The next 3 weeks were a masterclass in deception and preparation. I continued playing the devoted, slightly dim fiancé. I went to family dinners, smiled through their French conversations, and documented everything. Marcus grew more attentive as the wedding planning accelerated. He wanted to move the date up, get married in January instead of spring. Why wait? He said. I love you. Let's start our life together. What he meant was, let's get joint accounts set up before you figure anything out. I agreed with breathless enthusiasm, all while secretly photographing his laptop when he left it open at the rental apartment, forwarding incriminating emails to my secure server, building an unassailable case. Natasha made an appearance at a family dinner 2 weeks before the gala. She was introduced as a colleague, and I watched her hand linger on Marcus's arm a beat too long. Watched his eyes follow her across the room. Watched Isabelle smirk at the performance. Elle ne remarque rien, Catherine murmured to Philippe. She doesn't notice anything. But I noticed everything. I noticed the coordinated trading pattern that Michelle and I had mapped. I noticed the offshore accounts that Richard had traced. I noticed the web of lies and fraud and casual cruelty that the Laurent family had built their empire on. And I was ready to tear it all down. The day before the gala, I met with Michelle one last time. The SEC had their warrants ready. The State Attorney General's office had a task force prepared. My father's security team, unbeknownst to Marcus, had been coordinating with law enforcement to ensure every piece of evidence was properly authenticated and documented. You're sure about this? Michelle asked. Once you do this tomorrow night, there's no going back. The family will know you deceived them. Marcus will know. It's going to get ugly. They deceived me first, I said quietly. They looked at me and saw a mark. Someone to use and discard. They never saw a person. They never saw me. Tomorrow they will. I smiled. Tomorrow everyone will. That night, Marcus took me to dinner. An expensive restaurant in the North End. Candlelight and wine and his hand warm over mine. I love you, he said, his eyes earnest. You know that, right? I know, I lied. Tomorrow's gala is going to be amazing. My family is so excited about your donation. It means a lot to them that you're honoring us that way. It means a lot to me, too, I said truthfully. It did mean a lot, just not in the way he thought. He leaned across the table, cupping my face. After tomorrow, everything changes. We'll set up our joint accounts next week. Start really planning the wedding. Building our future together. Our future. Where he extracted what he needed before I realized what was happening. I can't wait, I whispered. And I couldn't. I couldn't wait for tomorrow night, when Emma Chen, the simple, gullible marketing consultant, would cease to exist. When Alexandra Chen, daughter of Thomas Chen, graduate of the Sorbonne and Stanford, fluent in 3 languages and worth $40 million, would stand up in front of Boston's financial elite and reveal exactly what the Laurent family had been doing. I couldn't wait for the moment when Marcus heard me speak perfect French for the first time, when the truth of his miscalculation hit him like a freight train. I couldn't wait for justice. As Marcus dropped me off at the rental apartment, kissing me goodnight with practiced tenderness, I felt nothing but cold certainty. Tomorrow would be reckoning day. Tomorrow the Laurent family would learn what it meant to underestimate someone. Tomorrow they would understand that gullible and patient are very different things. And tomorrow they would realize that the quietest person in the room is often the most dangerous. I went inside, locked the door, and smiled. The real Emma Chen was about to make her debut, and Boston's financial world would never be the same. The ballroom of the Four Seasons sparkled with crystal chandeliers and old money. 500 of Boston's financial elite mingled beneath vaulted ceilings, champagne flowing as freely as the insider information being traded between sips. I stood in the ladies' room, staring at my reflection. Tonight, I'd worn Valentino, the real deal, not a knockoff. My hair was styled by the same person who did Catherine Laurent's. Diamond earrings that had belonged to my grandmother caught the light. For the first time in 2 years, I looked like myself. Marcus had noticed immediately when he picked me up. Wow, that dress must have cost a fortune, I'd said, letting him assume I'd splurged on credit. I wanted to look perfect for tonight. His eyes had gleamed. In his mind, I was already spending our money recklessly. He'd smiled and kissed my cheek, no doubt calculating how quickly he could take control of my fictional trust fund. My phone buzzed. Michelle. SEC agents in position. AG's office ready. You're a go. I took one last breath as Emma Chen, the gullible fiancé. When I walked out of this bathroom, that woman would cease to exist. The ballroom fell into a hush as dinner concluded. Philippe Laurent took the stage, his silver hair and expensive suit projecting gravitas. Ladies and gentlemen, tonight we have a special announcement. A generous donation to our foundation from someone very dear to the Laurent family. Marcus squeezed my hand from his seat beside me. That's you, sweetheart. Go on up. I stood, smoothing my dress. Isabelle leaned toward Catherine, whispering in French. Combien tu paries qu'elle trébuche en montant? How much do you bet she trips going up? They laughed quietly. I walked to the stage with perfect posture, years of deportment training don't fade, and took the microphone from Philippe. The spotlight was warm on my face. Good evening, I began, my voice clear and strong. My name is Emma Chen. Many of you know me as Marcus Laurent's fiancée, the quiet, simple girl who somehow caught the eye of one of Boston's most eligible bachelors. Marcus beamed from his seat, completely missing the edge in my tone. Tonight, I'm here to announce a $5 million donation to the Laurent Foundation for Financial Ethics. I paused as applause rippled through the room. But before we celebrate, I'd like to share why this cause is so personal to me. Catherine's smile was indulgent. Marcus looked proud. Isabel was already on her phone, probably texting friends about the money. You see, I come from a family that values integrity. My father, Thomas Chen, built Chen Cybersecurity on the principle that trust is everything in business. When someone lies to you, when they deceive you for personal gain, it doesn't just break trust. It breaks something fundamental about how society functions. The room was very quiet now. Marcus's smile had frozen slightly. For the past 2 years, I've been getting to know the Laurent family, and I've learned so much. I smiled, letting it turn sharp. For example, I've learned that Marcus has been maintaining a secret apartment in the seaport, that he's been seeing multiple women there, including Natasha Kowalski, who I believe is sitting at table 12. Gasps erupted. Heads turned. Natasha's face went white. Marcus, chérie, I said, switching effortlessly to French. Tu pensais que je ne comprendrais jamais, n'est-ce pas? You thought I would never understand, didn't you? His face drained of all color. J'ai étudié à la Sorbonne pendant 3 ans. I continued in flawless French. J'ai vécu à Paris. Je parle couramment le français. Et pendant 2 ans, j'ai écouté chaque mot que ta famille a dit, en pensant que j'étais trop stupide pour comprendre. I studied at the Sorbonne for 3 years. I lived in Paris. I speak French fluently. And for 2 years I've listened to every word your family said, thinking I was too stupid to understand. The ballroom had erupted in shocked murmurs. Marcus stood, his face a mask of panic and rage. Emma, what are you? Asides toi, Marcus, I said coldly. Sit down, Marcus. I'm not finished. Security had moved to block the exits. Michelle's work. I turned back to the crowd, switching to English. I've also learned that Marcus, along with his mother Catherine, his sister Isabel, and his uncle Philippe, have been engaged in systematic insider trading for at least 5 years. They've been using family connections, coordinating trades through shell companies, and making millions while defrauding their clients. This is slander, Philippe shouted, standing. You have no proof. Actually, I said, pulling a small remote from my clutch, I have extensive proof. The screens behind me lit up with the first document, a chart showing coordinated trading patterns across 6 months. This is your trading activity, cross-referenced by timing and company. Note how Felipe's independent trades always happen within 48 hours of Catherine's, which always follow Marcus's client meetings by 72 hours. I clicked to the next slide. Here are the shell companies you used, registered in Delaware, managed through a firm in the Caymans, but all tied back to Laurent family members through a web of holding companies. Catherine was on her feet now, her face twisted with fury. You little bitch! Non, Madame Laurent, I said in French. Je ne suis pas celle qui a triché, menti et volé. C'est vous. No, Madame Laurent. I'm not the one who cheated, lied, and stole. That's you. I clicked through more slides. Emails between family members discussing trades, screenshots of text messages coordinating timing, bank records showing the flow of money. Every piece authenticated, time-stamped, legally obtained. I've been recording your conversations for months, I said. Every family dinner where you discussed your schemes in French, assuming I couldn't understand. Every casual comment about the stupid fiancé who would never catch on. All of it documented, translated, and provided to the Securities and Exchange Commission. Marcus was trying to push toward the stage, but security held him back. You set me up. This is entrapment. Entrapment requires law enforcement inducement, I said calmly. I'm not law enforcement. I'm just a woman who recorded conversations in spaces where I was legally present, with devices in plain sight. You chose to incriminate yourselves in front of me. That's not entrapment. That's stupidity. Isabelle had gone very pale. Papa, elle ne peut pas. Papa, she can't. But I can, I interrupted, still in French. Et j'ai fait bien plus que ça. And I've done much more than that. I turned to address the room fully. My donation tonight isn't to the Laurent Foundation, an organization that, investigation will show, has been used to launder money and provide tax shelters for illegal gains. Instead, I'm donating $5 million to the Massachusetts Attorney General's White-Collar Crime Task Force. On cue, the ballroom doors opened. A dozen people in FBI and SEC windbreakers entered, led by a woman in a sharp suit. Special Agent Sarah Chen, I said. My cousin. She's been coordinating with federal and state authorities for 3 weeks. I believe she has some warrants to serve. The ballroom exploded into chaos. Catherine was screaming at Philippe. Isabelle was crying. Marcus broke through security and grabbed my arm, his grip painful. You crazy bitch, he hissed. Do you know what you've done? You've destroyed everything. Non, Marcus, I said, yanking my arm free. Tu as tout détruit toi-même. Je l'ai juste révélé. No, Marcus. You destroyed everything yourself. I just revealed it. Agent Chen was at the stage now, agents fanning out to the Laurent family table. Catherine Laurent, Philippe Laurent, Isabelle Laurent, Marcus Laurent. You're being served with federal warrants for securities fraud, wire fraud, and conspiracy. You have the right to remain silent. The rest was drowned out by Catherine's shrieking. I stepped off the stage, nearly colliding with Marguerite, Marcus's grandmother. She studied me with those sharp eyes, then smiled slowly. Vous parlez français depuis le début, she said. You've spoken French from the beginning. Oui, madame. Good, she said in English. They deserved this. All of them. Too greedy, too stupid, too cruel. She patted my hand. You'll find I've been transferring assets quietly for 6 months. I knew something was wrong with their trading. I won't be implicated in their crimes, but I wanted you to know. I never thought you were gullible. I thought you were patient. She walked away, leaving me stunned. Michelle appeared at my elbow, grinning. Holy shit, Emma. That was better than I imagined. Is it done? All of it? All of it. Warrants executed, accounts frozen, evidence secured. The SEC has been waiting for this for 2 years. You handed them a perfect case. Marcus was being led away in handcuffs, still shouting. Emma! Emma, please! You don't understand. I love you. I was going to tell you everything. Tu m'as dit que j'étais crédule. I called after him. You told me I was gullible. Tu avais tort. You were wrong. The crowd parted for the agents and their suspects. Cameras flashed. Michelle's journalist colleagues, tipped off and ready. This would be front-page news by morning. Natasha tried to approach me, mascara running. I didn't know about the fraud. I swear, I just thought he was cheating. You knew enough, I said coldly. You wore jewelry he bought with stolen money. You vacationed on trades that destroyed people's retirement accounts. Maybe you didn't know the details, but you knew something was wrong. She fled toward the bathrooms, sobbing. The gala dissolved into pandemonium. Guests were trying to leave, but agents were taking statements. The Laurent Foundation board was in emergency session in a corner, trying to distance themselves from the family. Lawyers were arriving, phones were ringing, and the carefully constructed facade of Boston's financial elite was crumbling in real time. I found a quiet corner near the windows, looking out at the city lights. My phone rang. My father. Bao Bao, he said, using his childhood nickname for me. Precious treasure. David just called. He said you brought down the Laurent family. I brought down criminals, I corrected. They tried to use me, Baba. They thought I was stupid. His laugh was warm. Anyone who thinks my daughter is stupid deserves what they get. Are you safe? I'm safe, Cousin Sarah is here. Good. Come home soon. Your mother wants to make you dumplings. I will, Baba. Thank you for trusting me to handle this. You are my daughter. You handle everything. He paused. The donation to the AG's office? That was smart. Better use of money than any trust fund. After we hung up, I stood there watching the chaos I'd created. 2 years of playing small, of being dismissed and mocked and underestimated. 2 years of careful planning, meticulous documentation, strategic patience. All for this moment. Emma Chen? I turned to find a young woman, probably mid-20s, in an evening gown. Yes? I'm Rebecca Morrison. My father worked for Marcus's firm. He lost everything when Marcus's insider trading tanked some investments he'd recommended. My father had to declare bankruptcy. I just wanted to say thank you for doing what no one else could. Others approached after her. A man whose retirement fund had been decimated. A woman whose small business loan had been denied because the Laurent family's fraud had tightened banking regulations. One by one, they thanked me. I hadn't expected that. Hadn't thought beyond the satisfaction of justice, of watching the Laurent family face consequences. But seeing these people, understanding the ripples of the fraud, it made everything real. Michelle found me an hour later, as the ballroom finally emptied. The AG wants to meet with you tomorrow. So does the SEC. You're going to be giving a lot of depositions. I'm ready. The press is calling you the avenging angel. One paper is running with From Gullible to Gone Girl. You're about to be very famous. I grimaced. I don't want to be famous. Too late. You just took down one of Boston's most prominent financial families on live camera while speaking perfect French. That video is already viral. She showed me her phone. The clip of me switching to French, Marcus's face draining of color. It had 3 million views in 2 hours. At least make them spell my name right. I sighed. We left through a service exit, avoiding the press. My real apartment, my actual home, welcomed me like a sanctuary. I kicked off the Valentino heels, poured a glass of wine, and sank into my couch. My phone buzzed with messages. Sophia. You magnificent badass. David. Your father is proud. So am I. Sarah. Best. Bust. Ever. And then surprisingly one from Marguerite Laurent. You spared me because I was kind to you once. Thank you. I will testify against them. They deserve everything they get. Over the next 6 weeks, the Laurent empire crumbled completely. Marcus, Catherine, Philippe, and Isabelle were all indicted on multiple counts of securities fraud, wire fraud, and conspiracy. The evidence was overwhelming. My recordings, the documents, the bank records, and testimony from insiders who flipped once they realized the case was airtight. Marcus's firm fired him immediately and cooperated with investigators to avoid their own prosecution. Natasha lost her job too, though she wasn't charged. She'd been a useful idiot, not a conspirator. The secret apartment was raided, revealing not just evidence of affairs but also documents Marcus had been hiding from investigators. His passport was flagged when he tried to flee to Monaco. He was denied bail after the court determined him a flight risk. Michelle's story ran in the Globe 3 days after the gala. How one woman's patient deception brought down a financial dynasty. It detailed everything: my true background, the 2 years of gathering evidence, the recordings in French. She'd interviewed some of the Laurent family's victims, giving faces to the people who'd lost money to their schemes. The SEC filed a civil suit seeking $47 million in restitution. The criminal cases promised decades in prison if convicted. I testified before a grand jury, providing evidence and translations. My French professor from the Sorbonne even flew in to authenticate my fluency and confirm my credentials, just to shut down any defense arguments that I'd somehow fabricated the translations. 2 months after the gala, I met Marguerite for tea at the Four Seasons. in a private room far from the ballroom where her family's world had ended. "They blame me, you know," she said, stirring honey into her Earl Grey. "For not warning them. For not stopping you. I'm sorry you've been caught in the fallout." "Don't be." She smiled, and it was sharp and satisfied. "I built my fortune separate from my son's schemes. I'll be fine. And watching them face justice? That's worth the family drama." "Why did you help me?" I asked. "That night you warned me. You could have said nothing." "Because I was once like you," she said quietly. "When I was young, my husband's family thought I was just a pretty French girl who didn't understand business. They stole from me, cheated me. By the time I understood what was happening, I'd lost everything. But you rebuilt." "I did. Alone. Without family. It was hard." She looked at me over her teacup. "You are smarter than I was. You saw the trap before it closed. And you had the courage to fight back. I wanted you to succeed where I failed." We talked for another hour. About Paris. About business. About the particular challenges of being a woman in a world that mistakes quietness for weakness. When we parted, she kissed both my cheeks. "Au revoir, ma chère, et bonne chance." "Goodbye, my dear. And good luck." "Merci, Madame Laurent, pour tout." "Thank you, Madame Laurent, for everything." The trials began in the spring. I testified for 2 days, walking the jury through every recording, every document, every piece of evidence. Marcus's lawyer tried to discredit me, claimed I'd manipulated him, that I'd seduced him as part of some elaborate scheme. The prosecution shut that down fast. "Mr. Laurent, did you or did you not tell your sister that Miss Chen was gullible, and that you planned to extract what you needed before she realized what was happening?" Marcus's silence was damning. The jury deliberated for 6 hours, guilty on all counts. Catherine, 15 years. Philippe, 12 years. Isabel, 8 years. Marcus, 20 years. When the verdict was read, I sat in the back of the courtroom with Michelle and my father. I felt no triumph, no satisfaction, just a quiet sense of completion. Justice wasn't revenge. It was restoration of balance. After the sentencing, reporters mobbed me outside the courthouse. "Miss Chen, how do you feel? Do you think the sentences were fair? Would you do anything differently?" I paused on the courthouse steps, considering. "I wish I'd never had to do any of this," I said finally. "I wish Marcus had been the man he pretended to be. I wish his family had been kind instead of cruel. But they made their choices, and choices have consequences." "What's next for you?" someone called. "I'm going home," I said simply. "I'm going to have dinner with my family, read a book in French, and remember who I actually am." And that's exactly what I did. 6 months after the gala, I stood in my real apartment, the one Marcus never saw, looking at the harbor. The Laurent family was in prison. Their assets had been liquidated to pay restitution to victims. The firm had been dissolved. Even the foundation was under new management, with strict oversight. My life had returned to normal, or as normal as it could be after becoming briefly famous as the woman who spoke French. The media attention had faded. I'd gone back to my consulting work, which I actually enjoyed. I'd started dating again, carefully, with lessons learned. Sophia came over that evening, bearing wine and Thai food. "So," she said, settling onto my couch, 2 years with a lying, cheating, fraudster fiancé. Was it worth it?" I thought about Marcus's face when I'd started speaking French, about Catherine's fury when the agents arrived, about the victims who'd thanked me, whose lives had been damaged by the Laurent family's greed. "Yes," I said, not because I enjoyed it, but because it needed to happen, because no one else could have done it the way I did. "You know what the best part was?" Sophia grinned. "The video of you switching to French, Marcus's face. That moment when he realized he'd miscalculated everything. It's iconic. It was satisfying, I admitted. So what now? Back to the dating apps? Maybe be honest about your net worth this time? I laughed. Maybe. Or maybe I'll take a break from romance and focus on myself for a while. Revolutionary concept, Sophia said dryly. We ate Thai food and watched terrible reality TV, and it was perfectly ordinary. And perfect. A year after the gala, I received a letter. Prison mail, processed and inspected. It was from Marcus. I almost threw it away, but curiosity won out. Emma, I know I have no right to contact you. I know what I did was unforgivable. But I need you to know I'm sorry. Not for getting caught, though that part obviously sucks, but for not seeing you. The real you. You were right there in front of me the whole time. Smart, capable, patient, strong. And I was so busy looking for a mark that I missed the actual person. My lawyer says I'll serve at least 15 years. I've had a lot of time to think. About the choices I made. About who I became. About how I treated you. You were never gullible. I was arrogant. There's a difference. I don't expect forgiveness. I just wanted you to know that I finally understand what I lost. Not your money. Not your connections. You. The person you actually are. I hope you find happiness with someone who deserves you. Someone who sees you from the beginning. Marcus. I read it twice, then put it in my desk drawer. Not as a keepsake, but as a reminder of how close I'd come to marrying someone who only saw what he wanted to see. Of how dangerous it was to make yourself small for someone else's comfort. And of how powerful it was to be underestimated and to prove everyone wrong. I never wrote back. 2 years after the gala, I went back to Paris. Just for a week to visit old haunts and remember who I'd been before Marcus Laurent entered my life. I sat in a cafe in the Marais, drinking coffee and reading Le Monde. The waiter, an older man with kind eyes, noticed my American accent when I ordered. Vous parlez très bien français? He said. You speak French very well. Merci, j'ai étudié ici. Thank you, I studied here. Et maintenant? And now? Maintenant, je me souviens juste de qui je suis. Now, I'm just remembering who I am. He nodded sagely. C'est le plus important. That's the most important thing. I finished my coffee, left a generous tip, and walked through the streets I'd loved as a student. The city hadn't changed, but I had. I was older, wiser, scarred but stronger. I pulled out my phone and texted Michelle. In Paris, thinking about the gala. Still can't believe we pulled it off. Her response came quickly. We didn't pull it off. You did. I just helped. How's Paris? Beautiful, just like I remembered. Good, enjoy it. You earned it. I did enjoy it. Every moment, every cafe, every bookstore, every sunset over the Seine. And when I came home as myself. Not the woman Marcus thought I was. Not the persona I'd created to protect myself. Just Emma Chen. Daughter, friend, survivor, fighter. And that was enough. Epilogue. 5 years after the gala, I'm still in Boston. Still consulting. Still living in my apartment with the harbor view. I'm on the board of 3 nonprofits now, all focused on financial literacy and protecting consumers from fraud. Michelle won a Pulitzer for her investigative series on white-collar crime in Boston. We still have coffee every month. Marcus is in a federal prison in Pennsylvania. His mother and sister are in a minimum security facility in Connecticut. Philippe died 2 years into his sentence. Heart attack. The Laurent family name is synonymous with fraud in Boston. Their firm's building was sold and torn down. A memorial to their victims now stands in its place. I met someone last year. His name is David, and he's a high school teacher. When we met, I told him everything on the second date. Who I am, what I'm worth, What happened with Marcus? He listened to the whole story, then said, "So you speak French?" Fluently. "Say something." "Quoi?" "What?" He grinned. "I have no idea what that means, but it sounds sexy." We're taking it slow. He knows exactly who I am. All of it. The good, the complicated, the millions in the bank, and the trauma from 2 years with a con artist. And he loves me anyway. Sometimes people ask me if I regret those 2 years with Marcus. If I wish I'd walked away sooner. I don't regret it. Those 2 years taught me that patience is a weapon, that kindness doesn't mean weakness, and that the quietest person in the room is often the most dangerous. They taught me that being underestimated is a gift, if you're smart enough to use it. And they taught me that justice, real justice, is worth waiting for. Ellis Telmont Credulal. She's so gullible. Marcus whispered those words in French, thinking I'd never understand. But I understood everything. I always had. And that made all the difference. Up next, you've got 2 more standout stories right on your screen. If this one hit the mark, you won't want to pass these up. Just click and check them out. And don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on the notification bell so you don't miss any upload from us.